Good morning. Thursday, August 6, 2020. Another video. I'm a huge baseball fan. I've been studying baseball for over 50 years. Remarkable game. I've done a lot of videos on the game. Top 50 offensive players of all time, the top 50 pitchers of all time. Then I decided to do something a little more detailed. I did metric, analyzing baseball players and to see who comes out according to metric. What do I mean by metric? You add up certain categories and you see where they rank. I did a video on ball players, their hits, I'll look it up. I did a ranking on players. Their hits, their runs, and their RBIs. Added all three categories and came out with a total. I did the top 50 on these players who had the three combined categories as one total number. For example, one hit plus one run plus one RBI equals 3. So for baseball players who are retired, not the present day players and not the players who are on steroids or drugs, but the players whose career is over, I took their hits, their runs scored, and their RBIs and added it up as one number. Who came out ahead? Well, check that video out. But I'll tell you right now, the top 5. Number 5 was Babe Ruth. 4 was Camp Anson. 3, Pete Rose. 2, Henry Aaron. And number 1 was Ty Cobb. Cobb had a total of 8,373. Total number. His hits were 4189, runs scored 2246, and RBIs 1938. Those three numbers added up to 8373. So I did the top 50 on that. Check that video out. It's called Baseball Players Metric Top 50. All right. Then I did an analysis of players if they played the same number of games as the number 1 player who played the most games, what would his metric be as far as how many total hits he would have? So we know that Pete Rose played in 3,562 games, and he came out with 4,256 hits. So I did an analysis to see if Ty Cobb played the same number of games as Pete Rose. How many hits would he have ended up with? Turned out that he would have ended up with 4,918. That's what I mean by metrics and analyzing. Because Cobb played in 3,034 games, Rose played in 3,562. So that means Pete Rose, played 528 more games than Cobb. So what I did was, I did an average of 528 more games added to Cobb, and how many hits per game did he average? Turned out that he averaged 1.38 hits per game. So you multiply that, gives him an extra 729 hits. You add that to his total of 4,189, and he came out with 4,918. This is just kind of supposing what would have happened if Rose and Cobb played the same amount of games. Came in at number 2 on that list was Shoeless Joe Jackson. Then I have Roger Hornsby, Tris Speaker, Lou Gehrig. Then you have Henry Aaron, Babe Ruth, Willie Mays, Carl Yastrzemski, Honus Wagner, and Tony Gwynn. So if you analyze it that way. So I'm just giving an example of what metrics means. Now this video will be titled Baseball Pitchers Top 50 Metric. What am I going to do with pitchers? All right, we know who has the most wins in Major League Baseball history as far as a pitcher. We know that it is Cy Young, 511 wins. And they name the pitching award after Cy Young every year. But I did a analysis because he played in 906 games and ended up with 511 wins. So, obviously, if he won every game, he had 906 wins. So he didn't win every game. He had 511. So what you do is you divide that. Comes out to 0.56%. What do I mean? For every game he's in, you can add 0.5. Not 1, but 0.5, half a point. So in 906 games, 0.56 multiplied equals 511 wins. So his percentage was, every game he was in, you give him half a point. Following me? But I did an analysis. Not everybody played in 906 games. Who, if we did a suppose, let's say Christy Mathewson played in 906 games. How many wins would he have? What about Walter Johnson? If he played 906, how many would he have? How about Grover Cleveland Alexander? How many wins would he have? Warren Spahn, how many wins would he have? If all these pitchers played in 906 games, the same number that Cy Young played, how many wins would they have? I'm not going to include pitchers who pitched in the 1800s. You've got a guy named Pud Calvin, Tim Keefe, and John Clarkson. They won over 300 games. But I think their winning percentage was pretty good back then, but I'm not going to include them. We're not sure how competitive it was back in the 1880s. Obviously, you had to win the game and you had to throw the ball over the plate, and you were facing batters who could hit. So their stats are legitimate. But as far as the winning percentage, back then, they stayed in the game longer and refused to come out. And they didn't have as much relief pitching back then, 1880s. So I think Pud Calvin, according to his percentage, if he played in 906 games back then, he'd probably have a lot of wins. Same with Tim Keefe and John Clarkson. But they were pitching in the 1880s through the 1900s. I'm not going to include them. I could, but I don't think it would be fair to the guys in the 1900s. So let's suppose we know the number, 906 games that Cy Young pitched, and he won 511. That's a percentage of 0.56. But you know who has a better percentage? Christy Mathewson, 0.58 times he would win the game. So here's how I look at it. Christy Mathewson played in 636 games, and he won 373. 0.58% winning percentage. Every game he's in, you give him half a point. And so after 636 games, he comes out with 373 wins. But what if Christy Masterson played in 906 games instead of 636? How many wins would he have? Well, 906 minus the 636 that Christy played in means that if he played another 270 games to reach 906 games, how many wins would he have according to his 0.58 percentage? He would end up with 530 wins. He would beat Cy Young. Cy Young, 906 games. Christy Masterson, 906 games. Christy Masterson wins 530 according to the percentage. Cy Young, 511. How about Walter Johnson? Well, we know he won 417 games, but he was played in 802. So he was close to the 906 that Cy Young had. So what you do is you add 104 games, and so Walter Johnson now has 906 games. How many wins do you add to his 417? You add 54 wins. So he would have ended up with 471 wins if he played in 906 games, the same as Cy Young. So he comes in third place. Christy Masterson's number one, 530 wins. Cy Young, 511. Walter Johnson would end up with 471 if all three guys played 906 games, pitched in 906 games. Who would be the next guy? Grover Cleveland Alexander. Where would he end up? 696 games he played, won 373. His percentage, 0.53. Add 210 games to his 696 that he played in order to reach the 906 that Cy Young has. Guess what happens? He ends up with 485 wins. So I made a mistake there. I said that Walter Johnson was number 3. Got to put Walter Johnson number 4. Why? Because Grover Cleveland Alexander had a better percentage, 0.53. Johnson had 0.52. I got ahead of myself. So I'll clarify myself. Christy Masterson, 0.58%. Gives him 530 wins. Number 2 would be Cy Young, because he's at 0.56. So he wins 511. 3 is Grover Cleveland Alexander. He has 0.53 because he played in 696 and wins 373. Add 210 to give him 906 games. He ends up with 485. Okay, number 4 is Walter Johnson, 0.52 because he had more games, 802. And he wins 417. You know what the 802 meant? Means he came into relief. Wasn't games started. So I think that's why he has more games. And when he did the relief, he may not have gotten the win. He just kept the game close. So I'll put him at 4th place, 0.52. And then the 5th place person would be Warren Spahn. He won 363, but he was in 750 games. So in order for him to reach the 906 games, you add 75 more games. You do his 0.48%. He ends up with 438 wins. Recap. What am I trying to say here? If all 5 of these guys pitched in 906 games, what would their win total be? Christy Masterson comes out number 1. 906 games, according to his percentage, he would have won 530. Cy Young would be 2. He won 511. 3 would be Grover Cleveland Alexander. He would have won 485. Walter Johnson, number 4. He would have won 471. And Walter Spahn Number 5, 438 wins. What do you think of that analysis? Is that correct? I think so. All 5 guys played 906 games, and according to how their career went, their percentage of winning the game gives them a grand total, and you presuppose of what would have happened. But Cy Young is number 1 because he played in 906 games. Christy Masterson, only 636. Grover Cleveland Alexander, 696. Walter Johnson, 802. And Warren Spahn, 750 games. Here's my next analysis. Strikeouts. Who holds the Major League record for most strikeouts? Nolan Ryan, 5,714 strikeouts. Okay? And he did it in 5,386 innings. That's more strikeouts per innings pitched. Do you know that in Major League history, there are only 4 players who have more strikeouts than innings pitched? And I'm talking about longevity career, not these guys that are relievers, and not the guys that only play 8 or 9 or 10 years. I'm talking about guys who play 15 to 20 years. 4 guys have more strikeouts per innings pitched. So what did Nolan Ryan do? He pitched 5,386 innings, and he holds the record at 5,714 strikeouts. Let's presuppose again. What if the other 3 guys, I told you there were 4 of them. I'll tell you who they are. Randy Johnson, Nolan Ryan, Pedro Martinez, and Sandy Koufax, in their career have more strikeouts per innings pitched. Presuppose. What if these other guys had the same number of innings as Nolan Ryan did? Because Nolan Ryan holds the record for strikeouts, right? 5,714. And he does it in 5,386 innings. Let's say these other 3 guys also pitch 5,386 innings. How many strikeouts would they have ended up with? Who comes out on top? All right, here's the analysis. Randy Johnson pitched in 4,135 innings. That's less than Nolan Ryan. But he struck out 4,875. So he's number 2 in strikeouts. But let's say Randy Johnson pitches the same number of innings as Nolan Ryan. What's his percentage? Well, Randy Johnson averaged 1.18 strikeouts per inning. That's number 1. So what do? In order for Randy Johnson to have the same amount of innings as Nolan Ryan, you add the number. Okay, he's about 1,200 innings short. So you multiply the 1,200 times the 1.18 strikeouts per inning. And how many strikeouts does Randy Johnson end up with if he pitches the same number of innings as Nolan Ryan? He would have ended up with 6,352, and that would be number 1. That would have broken Ryan by 600 strikeouts. Following me? Who's number 2? If we presuppose. Pedro Martinez. 1.09 strikeouts per 9 innings. So what does Pedro do? He doesn't pitch as long as far as that many innings. How did I do, Pedro? Pedro pitched in 2,512 innings. And how many strikeouts did Pedro Martinez have? I've got the number here. I have it written down. Where do I have it? Pedro Martinez had more strikeouts per innings pitched. I had it written down. Here it is. Okay, my apology. I've got it. He pitched in 2,512 innings, and he struck out 2,827. That's 1.09 strikeouts per inning. More strikeouts than innings pitched. Add, since Nolan Ryan had the 5,386 innings, and only Pedro had 2,512, that means Nolan Ryan doubled it. Let's add Pedro Martinez all the innings so that he reaches 5,386 that Nolan Ryan pitched. How many strikeouts would Pedro Martinez have? He would have ended up with 5,889 strikeouts. Following me? Because he pitched the same number of innings that Nolan Ryan did. He would have been number 2. And number 3 is Nolan Ryan at 5,714. Now, I told you that Randy Johnson, Nolan Ryan, and Pedro Martinez all pitched the same number of innings. What is their strikeout total? Randy Johnson comes in number 1, 6,352. Pedro would come in number 3, 5,889. And Nolan Ryan would be in third place, 5,714. Same number of innings. And who's number 4? The only other guy to have more strikeouts per innings pitched? Sandy Koufax, but he only played 12 years because he got hurt and retired. Koufax, 1.03 strikeouts per 9 innings. So, what can we say about Sandy Koufax? He pitched in 3,000. Now, Sandy Koufax pitched in 2,324 innings. Okay? And had 22,396 strikeouts. So about 75 more strikeouts per innings pitched. Not that big of a number. See, the difference between Randy Johnson of innings and strikeouts, he was over 700 more. Nolan Ryan was over 400 more. Pedro Martinez was over 300 more, and then Koufax 75 more. So add the innings to Sandy Koufax, get him up to 5,386 innings, and Koufax would have ended up with 5,478 strikeouts. That would have been fourth place. Recap. I know it's a lot of numbers. I'll just say it again. Randy Johnson, number 1 strikeout king of all time. 4,135 innings. He strikes out 4,875. Add more innings to Randy Johnson so that he reaches the magic number that Nolan Ryan has, which is 5,386 innings. And Randy Johnson ends up with 6,352 strikeouts, number 1. Who would have been second place? Pedro Martinez, because he only pitched in 2,827 innings, but he had 3,151 strikeouts. Add more innings to Pedro Martinez, and where does he end up? 5,889 strikeouts, second place. Same number of innings as Johnson and Ryan. Nolan Ryan comes in third because he pitches the 5,386 innings, and ends up with 5,714 strikeouts. And then fourth place is Sandy Koufax, who only pitches 2,324 innings. Add the innings, get him up to 5,386, which is the innings that Johnson, Pedro, and Nolan all have, 5,386 innings. And Koufax ends up with 5,478. Following, Randy Johnson, 6,352, 1. Pedro Martinez, 5,889. Nolan Ryan, 5,714. And Sandy Koufax, 5,478 strikeouts. Is there more players? Are there more pitchers in Major League history who have more strikeouts than innings pitched? It's possible back 1880s and some of those early guys, but they didn't play as long. I'm looking for the longevity on it. And at the best of my research, I got it. All right, the last thing I'll do here on my metric is count down on the top 50 pitchers of all time according to metric. Where do their numbers stack up? And here's what I did. Innings pitched, strikeouts, and wins. For example, 1 inning pitched, 1 strikeout, and 1 win. 1 plus 1 plus 1 equals 3 for a grand total of 3. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the top 50, count down to number 1, add up their inning, strikeout, and win, and get a total number in the 3 categories. And who ends up number 1 should know. You're going to be some surprises along the way. Number 50 starts off with a grand total of 5,959. 59. Remember that number. Because when I get to number 1, what will the number be? And according to my list, it's almost doubled as far as the 3 categories for the total. So you'll see where the number 1 guy, what he did for his career. Let's count down, all right? And when I do the numbers in the category, I'll round off, but the total number will be correct. Who comes in at number 50? Well, I'll tell you who missed the cut. Kevin Brown, David Cone, David Wells, Whitey Ford, Catfish Hunter, Sandy Koufax, Carl Hubble, Orel Hershiser. Some of these guys did not approach the 59 number, the total number, indicating the number you need to get into the top 50. 5,959. All right, so these other pitchers were in the 5,000s. I'm not including pitchers who use performance-enhancing drugs. Roger Clemens. I'm not going to include him. His stats are questionable. I like the guy, and I think he should be in the Hall of Fame. But he's not in the Hall of Fame. Why? Because there's the enhancing drugs aspect. If he didn't do it, he would be in the Hall of Fame. But since he's not in the Hall of Fame, then it's in question. I like the guy, and I think he should be in the Hall of Fame. Roger Clemens, what a player. But he's not going to be on my list. And I'm not going to include players who are presently pitching right now, okay? These are players whose career is over, okay? Countdown, number 50 to number 1. Burleigh Grimes comes in at number 50. And I'll round off. In the innings pitched, over 4,000. Strikeouts, over 1,500. He won 270 games, so that gives him 59. 49 on the list. Amos Ruzzi. You probably haven't heard some of these guys, but some of them are old-time players. Innings pitched, over 3,700. Strikeouts, over 1,900. Wins, 246. Gives him a total of 5,974. 48 on the list. Andy Pettitte, you've heard of him. Over 3,300 innings, 2,400 strikeouts and 256 wins give him a total of 6,020. As we count down, the total number will increase. Start off at 59.59. Andy Pettitte, 6,020. 47 on the list, Don Drysdale. Over 3,400 innings, over 2,400 strikeouts, 209 wins, give him a total of 6,037. 46, Juan Marichal. Over 3,500 innings, over 2,300 strikeouts, 243 wins, 6,053 his total. 45, Epa Rixey. I haven't heard of him. Over 4,400 innings pitched. 1,300 strikeouts, 266 wins. Old school guy. Gives him a total of 6,110. 44 on the list, Jim McCormick. Over 4,200 innings, 1,700 strikeouts, 265 wins. Gives him 6,144. 43 on the list, Pedro Martinez. Over 2,800 innings, over 3,100 strikeouts, 219 wins, 6,200. 42, Jack Powell. Over 4,300 innings, 1,600 strikeouts, 245 wins, 6,255. 41 on the list, Gus Wyhiring. Over 4,300 innings, 1,600 strikeouts, 264 wins, 6,268. 40 on the list, Dennis Martinez. Close to 4,000 innings, 2,100 strikeouts, 245 wins, 63.93. So I'll recap. Grimes, Ruzzi, Pettitte, Drysdale, Marichal, Rixey, McCormick, Pedro Martinez, Jack Powell, Gus Wyhiring, and Dennis Martinez, 50 through 40. Following along, 39 on the list. Wait till you see the top 10. These pitchers were incredible. 39, Jim Palmer. Over 3,900 innings, over 2,200 strikeouts, 268 wins, 64-28 total. 38, Lefty Grove. Over 3,900 innings, over 2,200 strikeouts, 300 wins on the nose, 65.06. 37, Jack Morris. Over 3,800 innings, over 2,400 strikeouts, 254 wins, 65.56. 36, Curt Schilling. Over 3,200 innings, over 3,100 strikeouts, 216 wins, 65.93. 35, Red Ruffing. Over 4,300 innings, over 1,900 strikeouts, 273 wins, 66.04. 34, Tony Mullane. Over 4,500 innings, over 1,800 strikeouts, 284 wins, 66.18. 33, Mike Mussina. Over 3,500 innings, over 2,800 strikeouts, 270 wins, gives him 66.45. 32, Charlie Radburn. Over 4,500 innings, over 1,800 strikeouts, 309 wins, 66.66. 31, Bob Feller. Over 3,800 innings, over 2,500 strikeouts, 266 wins, 66.74. And number 29 and number 30 on the list, John Smoltz. Over 3,400 innings, over 3,000 strikeouts, 213 wins, gives him 67.70. Recap. 39, Palmer, Lefty Grove, Jack Morris, Curt Schilling, Red Ruffing, Tony Mullane, Mike Mussina, Charlie Radburn, Bob Feller, and John Smoltz. 29 on the list, John Clarkson. Over 4,500 innings, 1,900 strikeouts, 328 wins, 68-42. Okay, number 28 on the list. Red Faber. Over 4,000 innings, over 2,500 strikeouts, 254 wins, 69-21. 27, Mickey Welsh. Over 4,800 innings, over 1,800 strikeouts, 307 wins, 69-59. 26, Eddie Plank. Over 4,400 innings, 2,200 strikeouts, 326 wins, 7,067. He's the first one to break 7,000. What was the number I started off with? 59-59. Now I'm at 7,067. That's Eddie Plank. 25 on the list, Early Wynn. Over 4,500 innings, over 2,300 strikeouts, 300 wins. Puts him at 71-97. 24 on the list, Frank Tata. Over 4,100 innings, over 2,700 strikeouts, 240 wins, 71-98. 23 on the list, Tommy John. Over 4,700 innings. Excuse me. I'll go slower. Tommy John, 4,700 innings, 2,200 strikeouts, 288 wins, 72-43 the total. And number 21. Bob Gibson. Over 3,800 innings, over 3,000 strikeouts, 251 wins, 72-52. And number 21. Gibson was 22. Jim Kaat, 21. Over 4,500 innings, over 2,400 strikeouts, and 283 wins, gives him 72-74 total. Recap: John Clarkson, Red Faber, Mickey Welsh, Eddie Plank, Early Wynn, Frank Tanana, Tommy John, Bob Gibson, and Jim Kaat. I'll do all 50 in a row so you can remember the names. But right now I'm at number 20. Kid Nichols, old school. Over 5,000 innings. Whew. One of only 10 or 12 players to go over 5,000 innings pitched. But he was low on the strikeouts, 1,881. 361 wins is in the top 10. But put him at 73.09. We're in the 7,000s. 8, that was Kid Nichols at number 20. Number 19, Tom Glavine. Over 4,400 innings, over 2,600 strikeouts, and 305 wins, gives him 73-25. 18 on the list, Robin Roberts. Over 4,600 innings, over 2,300 strikeouts, and 286 wins, gives him 73-31. 17 on the list, a surprise to me. Christy Mathewson, 17? Well, he had over 4,700 innings. Strikeouts a little low, over 2,500. But he won 373 games. So that gives him a total of 76-68. But he comes in at number 17. There's 16 other guys that have totals that are higher, not in wins, but the 3-category total, and these guys are better as far as the total. But I think Christy Mathewson, 373 wins, that puts him number 3 as far as win total. But he was low on the strikeouts, so I think that's why he's at number 17. 16 on the list is Grover Cleveland Alexander. Again, another surprise, because he's number 4 in wins. No, he's tied with Christy Mathewson as far as wins, 373. But he had over 5,000 innings. But the strikeouts, 2198 in 5,000 innings. He didn't strike out as many, but he won the game, 373 wins. So give him a total of 7761. 15 on the list. Tim Keefe, old school. Over 5,000 innings, over 2,500 strikeouts. See, that's where they're lower. But the wins, 342. Give him 7955 total. 14 on the list. Ferguson Jenkins. Over 4,500 innings, over 3,100 strikeouts. See, that's where it pushes his number up. And 284 wins gives him 7976. 13 on the list. Pud Calvin, old school. Almost 6,000 innings pitched. That pushes him up. But strikeouts are low, 1,799. Other guys are in the 3,000 strikeouts. 361 wins, and he breaks 8,000, 8,101 total for all three categories. Pud Calvin. 12 on the list, Warren Spahn. Over 5,200 innings, over 2,500 strikeouts, 363 wins, 8189 his total. He's in the 8,000s. Number 11 on the list, Tom Seaver. Over 4,700 innings, over 3,600 strikeouts, that's a key, and 311 wins gives him 8733. Recap. Kid Nichols, Tom Glavine, Robin Roberts, Christy Masterson, Grover Alexander, Tim Keefe, Ferguson Jenkins, Pud Calvin, Warren Spahn, and Tom Seaver. And now we're at the top 10, and these guys are incredible as far as pitchers. Remember the number I was at number 50? It was 5959 total. Where are we now? Tom Seaver is 8,733. See the difference? Almost 3,000 in points difference. Before I continue, though, don't think that by my list that one pitcher is better than the other. Interchangeable as far as quality of pitcher, because a lot of them won 300 games, 280 games, 270, 250. So the list doesn't mean that one is better than the other, but it just means that there are three category totals places them on the list as far as order. Who's the top 10? Greg Maddux, over 5,000 innings. Whew. Over 3,300 strikeouts. Very good. And 355 wins. Pushes him at 8,734 total points. Number 9, who beats him? Bert Blyleven. Who would have think? Close to 5,000 innings. 3,700 strikeouts. That's a key for him. He had the curveball. 287 wins. Gives him a total of 8,958. Impressive. Number 8. Phil Niekro. I didn't realize how good he was. Over 5,400 innings, over 3,300 strikeouts, and 318 wins, and he pushes 9,064. 5 guys were in the 8,000s. That was Galvin, Spahn, Seaver, Maddux, and Blyleven. They were in the 8,000s. Now we're in the 9,000s. Phil Niekro comes up with 9,064. Number 7. You should know the top 10 here. Don Sutton. 5,282 innings. Over 3,500 strikeouts. That's a key. and 324 wins. 9,190 and 80. Don Sutton at the 7th position. 6, Gaylord Perry, over 5,350 innings, 3,534 strikeouts, 314 wins, 9,198. Gaylord Perry, number 6. Number 5, Randy Johnson, over 4,135 innings. Here's the key: 4,875 strikeouts. See, the other guys were in the 2,000 strikeouts, and some were like 1,800. But Randy Johnson, 4,875 strikeouts and 303 wins, gives him a grand total of 9,313. How about that? 4, Steve Carlton, over 5,200 innings, over 4,136 strikeouts. That's a key. And 329 wins. That's a key. 9,682. Way to go, Steve. Who are the top 3? You should know. Number 3, Walter Johnson. 5,914 innings. 3,509 strikeouts. He didn't reach the 4,000 or the 5,000 in strikeouts, but he had 417 wins. So that gives him a grand total of 9,840. Walter Johnson. Number 2, Cy Young. 7,356 innings. Number 1 all time in innings pitched. Incredible. 2,803 strikeouts. So that's where he's low. But he had 511 wins. He breaks 10,670. Now, I told you the first number at number 50 was 5959. And Cy Young is 10,670. Wow. Who's number 1? Who haven't I mentioned? If you don't know, you're not a baseball stat guy like I am. But I think you know. Nolan Ryan, number 1. Why? 5,386 innings. 5,714 strikeouts. That's number 1 all time. And he's 900 ahead of the second place guy, which is Randy Johnson. Remember I talked about Randy Johnson, though? If he plays the same number of innings as Nolan Ryan, then he would have had more strikeouts, but he didn't. Nolan Ryan, give props to him. 5,386 innings and 5,714 strikeouts and 324 wins. Gives him a grand total of 11,424 total points. Number 1 on my top 50 metrics and all 3 categories. You want me to recap? I'll do it quickly. Berline Grimes, number 50. Amos Rosie, Andy Pettit, Don Drysdale, Juan Marshall, Epi Rixey, Jim McCormick, Pedro Martinez, Jack Powell, Gus Wyhiring, Dennis Martinez, Jim Palmer, Lefty Grove, Jack Morris, Kurt Schilling, Red Ruffing, Tony Mullane, Mike Messina, Charlie Radbourne, Bob Feller, John Clarkson, John Smoltz, Red Faber, Mickey Welsh, Eddie Plank, Early Frank Tanana, Tommy John, Jim Cott, Bob Gibson, Kid Nichols, Tom Glavine, Robin Roberts, Christy Mathewson, Grover Cleveland Alexander, Tim Keefe, Ferguson Jenkins, Pud Calvin, Warren Spahn, Tom Seaver, and the top 10. Greg Maddux, Bert Blyleven, Phil Niekro, Gaylord Perry, Randy Johnson, Steve Carlton, Walter Johnson, Cy Young, and Nolan Ryan. How about that? The top 50 in metric in all three categories of innings, strikeouts, and wins. Now, I didn't include relief pitchers. They don't pitch as much. I don't include present-day players, and I don't include those performance-enhancing drugs. Roger Clemens, I think he would be in the 8,000s or 9,000s. But he's not in the Hall of Fame, and there must be a reason. I hope he's innocent, and I think he should be in the Hall of Fame. So, Roger, I enjoyed your pitching. But my apology to you for not including you on the list. And I did the same thing with the top 50 baseball players in batting offensive. I didn't include those guys who supposedly took the drugs. I didn't include them in my top 50. And I already told you who came out on number 1 on that one. You remember that list? I still have it here. Are you interested? Check out that video, but I'll recap just because you may be curious. Number 50 on that list, it was hits, runs, and RBIs, the 3 categories, and then a grand total number. So I'll just recap on that one. 50, Ernie Banks, Lou Brock, Wade Boggs, Johnny Damon, Sam Rice, Bertie Williams, Mickey Mantle, Jim Thome, Frank Thomas, Tony Perez, Frankie Frisch, Tony Gwynn, Roberto Clemente, Andrew Dawson, Harold Baines, Reggie Jackson, Sam Crawford, Chipper Jones, Gehringer, forgot his first name, Craig Biggio, Paul Wainer, Roger Hornsby, Jack Beckley, Robin Yount, Adrian Beltre, Al Kaline, Al Simmons, Ken Griffey, Ted Williams, Jimmy Fox, George Brett, Nap Lajoie, Paul Molitor, Eddie Collins, Ricky Henderson, Cal Ripken, Frank Robinson, Mel Ott, Lou Gehrig, Dave Winfield. And then the top 10 was Derek Jeter, Eddie Murray, Tris Speaker, Carl Yastrzemski, Willie Mays, Babe Ruth, Cap Hansen, Pete Rose, Henry Aaron, and a guy named Ty Cobb. All right, so for this video on the top 50 pitchers, you may ask me the question, who's my favorite pitcher on the list? That's a hard one. But I have to go with Christy Mathewson being my favorite, the Christian gentleman. Why? Because I did the analysis, and he had the best winning percentage at .58 per game, half a point per game. In 636 games, he won 373 of them. Christy Mathewson. And he could have played longer. Okay? And so I did an analysis that if he pitched the same number of games as Cy Young, 906, he would have ended up with 530 wins, which would have been number 1. So he's my favorite. Who's the best pitcher on this list of all time? That's different than my favorite. Who do I consider the greatest pitcher of all time? I'm going to go with Walter Johnson. 417 wins. And he played for a poor team back in that era, the Washington Senators. He plays for a better team. He has over 600 wins. I believe that. He would win 25 games for a last place team. If he played for a first place team or second place team, he gets 30 wins each season. Easy. So I say that Walter Johnson is the best pitcher of all time. Who's the hardest thrower of all time? You got to give it to Nolan Ryan. 7 no-hitters, 5,714 strikeouts. The only flaw, actually, I don't want to talk about flaws with the pitchers. I'll leave that out. I want to be positive on all the pitchers. So all the pitchers have flaws. Walks, losses. But Nolan Ryan, I would say, was the hardest thrower. I would not want to face him. 5,714 strikeouts, 324 wins, very good. Who's the most durable of all of them? Got to give it to Cy Young. 906 games? Are you kidding me? 511 wins? Incredible. Who would I want on my team? Sandy Koufax. I'd take him. I'd take Walter Johnson. I'd take Nolan Ryan, Christy Masterson. I would take Greg Maddux. Oh, what a player he was. Bob Gibson, I'd take him. Randy Johnson, I'd take him. Tom Seaver, he struck out 10 in a row. I would take Roger Clemens too, but sorry, Roger, you're not on the list. Who is the most impressive pitcher on this list? My favorite is Christy Masterson. The greatest pitcher, in my opinion, is Walter Johnson. The hardest thrower of all time, Nolan Ryan and Randy Johnson, both of those guys. Who is the most consistent? Cy Young. But who's the most impressive pitcher on this list? Have you heard of a guy named Bob Feller? He started at 17. I think one opening day he had a no-hitter. How about that? So how about a guy that comes into the league at age 17? Bob Feller, that's impressive. Another guy that's impressive was Ferguson Jenkins. Why? Played in Chicago, but I think he had 8 or 9 seasons in a row of 20 or more wins. Now, other pitchers did that back in the old days too, but he was impressive. Bob Gibson, very impressive. Remember the World Series game? 17 strikeouts, and then that one year he had 1.12 ERA. Wow. How about Bert Blyleven? He comes in on my list at number 9, 287 wins, but he has 3,700 strikeouts. He didn't throw that hard. He had the curveball. How about that? Don Sutton was durable. Phil Niekro, I believe that was a knuckleball, right? Gaylord Perry, hard to hit. Grover Cleveland Alexander and Warren Spahn, they were pretty good back in their day. Tom Glavine's a good pitcher. Whew. And John Smoltz. I can go on on these guys. Lefty Grove, hard thrower. Curt Schilling, Jack Morris. Some of these guys, Andy Pettit, Don Drysdale, 58 2/3 scoreless innings. But Nolan Ryan, 7 no-hitters. Sandy Koufax, 4 no-hitters. Cy Young had 3 no-hitters. Steve Carlton, a lefty, 329 wins, over 4,000 strikeouts. He was hard. I'd like to face, if you were a left-handed batter, I'd like to face Steve Carlton. Whew. And the old school guys, you got Bud Galvin, Tim Keefe, Robin Roberts. Whitey Ford didn't even make my list. Carl Hubble. Orel Hershiser, he holds a record, 59 straight scoreless innings. Very impressive. Tommy John, 288 wins. Grover Cleveland Alexander, 373. But Christy Mathewson is my favorite. Look up his old highlights on YouTube. What a player. He had a World Series, pitched 3 games in the World Series, got 27 outs, no runs scored. Incredible. All right, thanks for watching this video. I'm out.